Good afternoon. I pray that your Wednesday was filled with spaces and places of joy, of peace, of happiness. We have familiarized the term Wednesday with hump day, that we are midweek. We have made it halfway through. But I dare say with these new reality with this virus, this COVID-19, sometimes it's hard to remember what the days of the week are. Sometimes it's hard to remember exactly what happened yesterday or what happened this evening. Sometimes it's hard to remember because it doesn't seem like there's many hump days at all. It doesn't seem, because hump day kind of implies that we're halfway through something. But if all the days resemble themselves, what are we actually halfway through? So I would invite you to change your way of thinking about Wednesdays or thinking about the days of the week. And instead of focusing on the beginning or the middle or the end, to focus on each day and what it brings in its present moment, devoid of anything else. So having said that, I pray that your Wednesday, you had a space or a place of joy, of peace, of happiness, that you smelt something that just smelled really, really good. I walk in the morning, and one morning I was walking, and two gentlemen passed me coming from the opposite direction. And once they had went by, I was like, ooh, one of them smells so good. And that actually made me smile. So I invite you to look for joy in even small places. We are continuing our conversation about toxic relationships and what are some signs that your relationship may be toxic. And again, just a reminder, I'm not just talking about you and your spouse or you and your partner, but I'm talking about platonic relationships also. You and your children, you and your parents, your other relatives, co-workers, you and the persons who you worship with, you and the persons who you fellowship with, you and your frat and your sorors. Yes, I did say that. Whoever you may be in relationship with, we're looking at signs to see if it could possibly be toxic. And another reminder, if it's a good relationship, then you don't need to look for signs. They say if it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. But I suspect for those of you who chose to click on this video, there may be something deep within your spirit, deep within your shanana, that leads you to believe or to question, how healthy is my relationship? Today we're going to talk about toxicity may be present in your relationship if you feel like you are under constant stress. A normal amount of tension runs through every relationship, but finding yourself constantly on edge is an indicator that something's off, with an emphasis on the word constantly. Relationships are stressful. Whether it's a good relationship or a bad relationship, they can be stressful. I'm going to use an example when you have a baby, okay? And it's a bundle of joy and you've never felt your heart break open and so much love ever in your life. This is usually your first baby experience. It's just a sense of awe and wonder. And you just love, love, love. You count the fingers and toes. But how many of you know, as much as you love, as much as you feel blessed, there is stress in that new relationship. There is stress because this baby's needs and the need for you to take care of it sometimes causes you to have to stretch yourself to a place where even as you love, you're wondering, how can I manage this? Yes, I'm talking about those 2 a.m. feedings or being sleep deprived or being thrown up on, or as soon as you get yourself settled down to maybe watch some TV, you hear that So there's a certain degree of stress in any relationship. That does not mean your relationship with your baby is toxic. It just means that there are some things that have to be adjusted to. There are some things that need to be addressed. There are some needs that each person in the relationship has that need to be met, whether it feels good or not. What I am talking about, though, this constant stress, if some of you are in relationship with people that even when you think of their name, when you think of being in their presence, it just makes you feel exhausted. When you see their name come up on your contacts, when your phone is ringing, you have to ask yourself, am I really going to answer this? Because this takes a lot out of me. I had a relationship with someone, and this was a platonic relationship, that I really had to modify because it was taking too much out of me to be that person's friend. This person demanded too much. This person had their own set ideals of how the world should be looked at. And anytime someone, or if I said something that did not directly fit how they saw the world, I was in for a lecture. I was in for being chastised. And I eventually decided I can't do this. This is too stressful for me. Some of you are in relationships where when we have COVID, so most of you are in the house. But if you do happen to go out for grocery shopping or to take a walk, when you pull up back in front of your house, you have to sit and gather yourself because it's like, I really don't want to go back in there. I really don't want to deal with the tension that is here. Some of you are finding a constant tension in your home because up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, you had now become the teacher. You had to participate in this homeschooling. And there is a reason why you did not choose teaching as your profession. It is not what you were called to do. It is not where your patience level is. So you find when you're helping your children that you end up being pissed off, they end up being pissed off, and no real learning has happened. That even when they talk about it's time for school, everybody's stress level goes up, everybody's shoulders begin to tense, everybody's teeth begin to clench together. The kids may begin to perspire a little bit more. It is extremely stressful, and it's constant. And how many of you know when you're under constant stress, it has the potential of wreaking havoc on your body, on your physiological system. Our bodies were not meant to stay at a high level of stress. It requires too much of our nervous system. It causes it to have to operate in ways it was not designed to operate. And if it continues for an extended period of time, it can result in high blood pressure. It can result in a stroke. It can result in tension in your joints. Being under constant stress, you may find that your joints hurt more. And it's not because you have necessarily injured them. It's because you're so tightly clenched. You're under such stress that your arteries are constricting, and enough blood is not flowing to the places where it needs to go. And so if these things are happening, if you find yourself constantly under stress, I would invite you to consider, what is this doing to you? And is this something that is sustainable? And that's a good piece. Is it sustainable? Because typically when we find ourselves under a great deal of constant stress in our relationships, we tend to do one or two things, or maybe one or three things. We either tend to check totally out. We just are no longer emotionally present. We are physically present, doing the things we need to do, but we have left the building. We check out, we shut down. And as I've said before, anything at an extreme is not healthy. We are always focusing on balance. So one result of living under constant stress in your relationships is you just shut down completely. But by shutting down, you also have not resolved the issues, and you also miss the joy. You miss times of happiness. You miss those things because you are shut down. The other extreme is that you're under such constant stress that you find yourself yelling and screaming and just going off more times than you would like. You find yourself just cursing folk out and constantly having an attitude, which is a whole nother extreme. And instead of addressing in either instance, why am I shutting down or why am I acting out, we begin to do things to try to feed or assuage the stress. We do stress eating, we do stress sleeping. We just stay in the bed. We do stress drinking. We do stress using of drugs. I've had a number of people talk about, Thank God for wine. It's helping me to get through. But I would invite you to look at how much are you imbibing? How much has your use of alcohol increased? Has it moved from this is something pleasant I do, just to chill. I regulate myself to the recommended daily amount, which is I think 4 to 6 ounces of wine a day, and you're now finding yourself finishing bottles or finishing half bottles by yourself. You find yourself really looking forward to that sweet feeling of almost oblivion that comes when you have begun to use alcohol to manage your stress. Some of you are keeping the weed dispensaries or your private stash person, you are keeping them in money because you have found your intake of those types of things has gone up. And some of you are doing this with your prescription medications because it's not that you necessarily need it, or it's not that you're necessarily in pain, but you're taking your pain medication that you had from that accident 4 months ago, 2 years ago. You're now taking it because it takes you to a place where you don't have to deal with the constant stress in your life. If any of these things are resonating with you, if you're finding yourself under constant stress, and your relationships may not be the cause of the stress. Let me emphasize that. Your relationships may not be the cause, but because of just life and life's challenges, which can be stressful within itself, that stress is bleeding into your relationships and contributing or can be contributing to the toxicity of those relationships. And I can bet with every ounce of my being, if you had your choice, this is not how you would choose to live. This is not how you would choose to go through life constantly on edge. And so I invite you to consider what I've talked about today, to do some self-examination intentionally and on purpose, and just continue to gather information so that you can be informed about what is the state of your relationships? How are you managing stress during these COVID times? And I invite you to do that on purpose. We will continue tomorrow. Love you all. And again, today, try to focus on spaces and places where you can find some degree of joy. I'll end by saying I invite you to like and share. For those of you who are new to my videos, welcome. For those of you who have been around, I thank you for your presence. And now I invite you to share this with someone else. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.